All right, y'all. So we're going to work this problem here, like y'all's number 9 on homework. So I'm going to write these down real quick for this supplier A and supplier B. So if you notice, the first thing they want me to find on both of these is the mean and the standard deviation. So y'all, I'm going to write these down: 16.23, 16.26. And looks like they got them in order already. 16.32, 16.34, 16.38, 16.42, and then finally 16.46. So that's the ball bearing sizes for A. And in B, I had 16.18, 16.21, 16.25, 16.35, 16.39, 16.42, and then finally 16.46. All right, y'all. So for number A, they want us to find the mean and the standard deviation. So I'm going to go back to the pad so we can work these out. All right, y'all. So to find the mean, I'll start with supplier A. To find the mean, we got to add all 7 of them together and then divide by 7 since that's how many we had. So we're going to start with the mean for A. So this would be the mean for supplier A. So y'all, we're going to add all these together and then divide by 7. So you would do 16.23 plus 16.26 plus 16.32 plus 16.34 plus 16.38 plus 16.42 plus 16.46. Take all of that and we'll divide by 7. All right, y'all. So I'm going to run to the calculator real quick, add them together and see what we get, and then divide that by 7. All right, so you can do it all in one step if you add that top and then divide by that 7. So if you want to do it all in one step, you got to put the top in parentheses so that it'll add it all before we divide. So here we go, 16.23 plus 16.26 plus 16.32 plus 16.34 plus 16.38 plus 16.42, and then finally plus 16.46. Now I'm going to close those parentheses because it'll add all of them, and then I'll divide by 7. All right, y'all. So when we hit enter, we'll get the mean, which is the average. So here we go, hitting enter. We get 16.344. I'm going to round it out about 3 digits until I see how MathLab wants me to round it, okay? So I'm just going to leave it 3 digits for now. They'll probably want me to round it 2 places, but we'll see when we get there. Now, here's the fun part, standard deviation. So the standard deviation, I'm going to make my little chart like I showed y'all the other day. I'm going to put all my X's here. So 16.23, 16.26, 16.32, 16.34, 16.38, 16.42, and then finally 16.46. So I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 data points. So remember, I just use it to make me a chart because standard deviation takes a little bit of a process, okay? So my next column will be my X minus my mean. We'll take each one of these and subtract our mean. And y'all, let me look at MATLAB and see how much they want us to round our mean off. So it says in parentheses, round to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places. So if I round this 2 decimal places, that'll be 16.34. So I'm going to leave that at 4 since that's a 4 after it. Now, I'm going to take each of these x's and subtract that mean to get my x minus mean. All right, y'all. So, starting with 16.23, we would subtract our mean of 16.34. And that'll give me a negative 0.11. Then I take my 16.26, subtract my mean 16.34, and that'll give us a negative 0.08. All right, then I take my 16.32, subtract 16.34, and we get a negative 0.02. All right, y'all, next I had 16.34. Subtracting 16.34, that gives me 0. All right, y'all, next I had 16.38. Subtracting our 16.34. That gives us 0.04. Next we had 16.42. Subtracting our 16.34. And we get a 0.08. And then finally, the last point was 16.46 minus our mean of 16.34. And that last point gives us a 0.12. All right, y'all, so let me go back to the page. All right, so we found our mean first by adding all the data points for A and dividing by 7. We got 16.34 rounded off to 2 decimal places. So I took each of these x's, put them in a line, and subtracted this mean from each one to get this column. Now our next step is to take each of these x minus means and square them. So we'll just multiply these numbers times themselves. Now when you square them, a negative times a negative becomes a positive. So every one of these will give me a positive value when I square them, okay? All right, y'all, so I'm going to go back to the calculator and we'll square all these. All right, so first, I had a negative 0.11, close parentheses, and square that. So that gave me, when I hit enter, 0.0121. All right, then I had negative 0.08. I'm going to close parentheses and square that. And I get a 0.0064. Next, I had a negative 0.02. I'm going to close parentheses and square that. Y'all notice I always put my negative numbers in parentheses so that when it squares it, it'll square the negative also, okay? All right, so negative 0.02 squared gave me 0.0004. So that's what that negative 4 means. It means there's 3 zeros in front of that 4. All right, y'all, next I had 0. Well, 0 squared is 0. So after that, I had 0.04 squared. That gave us a 0.0016. All right, next was a 0.08. We square that. We got 0.0064. And y'all, finally, I had a 0.12. Square that. And we get 0.0144. All righty. So took the x, subtracted the mean of 1634, got this column. Then I squared each one of these to get this x minus mean squared column. So our next step is to add all of these together and get our sum. Okay? So we're going to add all these together and get a sum here. So y'all, let's go back to the calculator and add them together. All right, so I had 0.0121 plus 0.0064 plus 0.0004 plus 0 plus 0.0016 plus 0.0064, and y'all, finally plus 0.0144. All right, we hit enter. And that gives me 0.0413. All right, so we squared them, added all of them together to get this sum here. So this is the sum of all of these added together. So now our standard deviation is going to equal the square root of this sum right here, which is what? 0.0413 divided by the total number of data points minus 1. So we had 7 data points. We'll subtract 1 from that. So y'all, that'll give me 0.0413 divided by 6. So y'all, let's go knock that out on our calculator. So first I'll do the second x squared to get that square root. And then I had 0.0413 divided by 6. So all that's up under that little square root there, okay? So when I hit enter, my standard deviation, we're going to round it 2 decimal places. So that'd be 0.08. And y'all, looks like we will keep that at 8 because it's got a 3 after it. So the standard deviation for that one, so let me go back to the pad, was 0.08. So we go in and we're going to put our mean of 16.34 and our standard deviation. All right, y'all, here's our mean, 16.34. And then standard deviation was 0.08. So that's on average how much the ball bearings were from our median in the center, okay? All right, so we check that. And y'all look at this. Now we get to do all of that for supplier B. So we need to come in on B. So let me go back to the pad. So now we need to take all this data for supplier B and figure out our mean. And then we'll find our standard deviation, okay? So let me write these in. So for supplier B, we're going to find our mean for B. So that's going to equal my data for B, 16.18 plus 16.21 plus 16.25 plus 16.35 plus 16.39 plus 16.42 and then plus 16.46. We'll add all them together and then divide by 7 since we had 7 data points. So y'all, let's go knock that out real quick on our calculator. All right, so I'm going to do it in one step. So I'm going to add everything in parentheses and then close the parentheses and divide by my 7. All right, here we go. 16.18 plus 16.21 plus 16.25 plus 16.35 plus 16.39 plus 16.42 plus 16.46. So it's all my data points. I'm going to close the parentheses and then divide by 7 since that was how many data points we had. So when we hit enter, and remember, we're rounding it 2 decimal places. So that's going to be 16.32. And I'm going to keep that a 2 because it's got a 2 after it. So we don't round that one up. Alrighty, so we now have our mean of 16.32. So now I'm going to write my x's. 16.18. And y'all, this is why people that do statistics get paid so much, because there's so much work you got to do on these. All right, 16.21, 16.25, 16.35, 16.39, 16.42, and then 16.46. All right, so there's all my data points. Now, I'm going to take each of the data points and we're going to subtract our mean from each one of these, okay? So y'all, I'll do that on the calculator. So first was 16.18. Minus 16.32. And y'all, that gives us a negative 0.14. Next was 16.21 minus 16.32. That gives us a negative 0.11. Next, I had 16.25 minus 16.32. That gives us a negative 0.07. Then I had 16.35 minus 16.32. That gives us a 0.03. All right, 16.39 minus 16.32 gives me a 0.07. 16.42 minus 16.32 gives me a 0.1. And then finally, 16.46 minus 16.32 gives me a 0.14. Alrighty, so I took each x, subtracted the mean of 16.32, and got this column. So now we got to take all of these and square them. So we're going to find our x minus our mean squared. And y'all just remember, everything has to come out positive in this column, okay? All right, so I'll go to the calculator and we will square everything. Now remember, negative numbers put in parentheses. So negative 0.14, close parentheses and square that. That'll give us a 0.0196. Next, I had a negative 0.11. I'm going to close parentheses and square that. I get a 0.0121. Next is negative 0.07. Close parentheses, square that. We get a 0.0049. All right, now everything else is positive. 0.03. Square that. Now that 9e negative 4, that's a 0.0009. So they're sort of doing scientific notation on that, but when you see a 9e negative 4, that means you would have 3 zeros in front of the 9. Okay, it's like you're moving it left 4 times, okay? Um, this calculator does, and I think the older calculators, or even the ones y'all got on the phone apps, they should give you like a 0.0009 for that, okay? All right, 0.07 squared gives me a 0.0049. 0.1 squared gives me a 0.01. And y'all finally, 0.14 squared gives us a 0.0196. All right, so remember, I squared every one of the x minus mean answers I had, got this column. Now, we're going to find the sum of this column by adding all these together. So y'all, you use a calculator a lot on this mean, okay? Standard deviation. Definitely use the calculator a lot. Okay, also let's add those. 0.0196 plus 0.0121 plus 0.0049 plus 0.0009 plus 0.0049 plus 0.01, and then finally plus 0.0196. So I got all my points. I'm going to hit enter and see what the sum is. And it is 0.072. All righty. So now our next step to find our standard deviation was to take the square root of this sum, 0.072, and divide that by the total number of data points, which is 7 minus 1. You always subtract 1 from the total data when you're doing the standard deviation, okay? So that'll be 0.072 divided by 6. So y'all, let's go run that through the calculator and see what we get. So I'm going to do the second x squared to get my square root. I had 0.072 divided by 6. All right, so we're going to hit enter and get our standard deviation. And y'all remember, we're rounding at 2 decimal places. So this was 0.1, but y'all look, that zero's in the second decimal place, but it has a 9 after it. So we will round that 0 up to a 1, and that'll give us a 0.11. And also, we got our mean, 16.3, standard deviation of 0.11. Now we would go put that in MATLAB. All right, so what do we say here? 16.32. And then that was 0.11. All right, so we check that answer, and then they'll give us the next step. So they want us to draw a box plot for the data from A and B. So y'all, let me show you how you're going to draw a box plot. All right, so let me go back to my pad. So this is my data for A again. I'm going to pull this down now. So now we're going to do a box plot. So remember, the box plot is the 5-number summary. You're going to have your low value, your lower quartile, you'll have your median, your upper quartile, and then your high value. Okay? So I'm going to make me a number line using these. Well, y'all can't see it, but my range needs to come around 16 and go up to about 17, it looks like. Okay? So I'm going to make me a little line here. So 16 will be around here. And then we'll put 17 over here. Okay? So notice my lowest value was 16.23. So this left mark here is going to be at about what you think 16.23 is. I didn't remember. And we'll draw the box in a second. My high value was 16.46. So I'm going to put that about right here. So the low value and the high value. Now, my median, since I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, my median would be the middle number, which would be 16.34. So on my box, so let's think, 3, 4 will be about in between those. So that'll be my median. Now, my lower quartile go here. That's the medium of the bottom half. Well, the bottom half of data are these 3 numbers here, and the middle of those is 16.26. So 16.26 is going to be my lower quartile. Now I'm going to find my upper quartile and put it right here. And the upper quartile is the median of the upper half of data. So that was the 16.42. Right now, so the box plot is going to box this off. So the box starts at the lower quartile to the upper quartile. Your line in the middle for your median of the whole data set. So this is the median of the whole data set. And then right here, you draw a little whisker from there. And we call these the whiskers. So they start at your low value and go to your high value. So for supplier A, this was their data. This would be what their box plot looks like. So we want to find something like that on this MATLAB. I go, well, A don't even have the box. So let's see. So D don't have the box. So I got to see which one of these. So it can't be C. You see how they got 16.2, but the whisker goes left of it. So I'm going to make that larger so y'all can see. Because remember, my low value was 16.23. So it would have to be to the right of that 16.2. So let's look at B. So B, that left whisker, it's coming down. Looks like it could be about 16.23. My right whisker is past the 16.4 like it should be. And then my upper quartile was 16.42. So see, it's a little bit past that 16.4. So y'all, the one that looks closest to what we came up with would be B. Now guess what? We get to do that again for, well, that was A. Now we get to do it for supplier B. So let's go back to the pad. So first, my low value for this data was 16.18. So that's going to be my first whisker. My high value was 16.46. So that'll be my right whisker. Now let's find the median, the lower median, and then the upper median. So the median of all this data is the middle number, which is 16.35. All right, now the lower quartile is the median of the bottom three numbers. So the middle number for these bottom three would be 16.21. And then right here, the upper quartile is the median of the bottom three or the top three. And that middle number is 16.42. Right, so we'll make this a box. And then extend my whiskers out to that low and upper value. All right, so we need one that looks similar to this. So let's go to MATLAB. And you'll notice it cannot be A because that don't even have whiskers. It cannot be B because they don't have the box. So it's got to be C or D. So we need to sort of zoom in and see which one has our data represented. So our low value was 16.18. Well, all 16.18 is less than 16.2. So that left side on C looks good. My high value was 16.46, which would be to the right of the 16.4. Also, my upper quartile was 16.42. So it should also be higher than the 16.4. Now, if you look at D, that low value is to the right of 16.2. Well, our low value had to be to the left of 16.2. It needed to be at 16.8, okay? Or 1.8. So the only one that works for us is C. All right, y'all, now let's see what they say. So what percentage of ball bearings from each supplier met um, specifications? So the specifications say they should be 16.30 with a tolerance of 0.1. So that means anywhere from 16.2 to 16.4. All right, so we want to count how many for A are in between 16.2 and 16.4. That's what they mean by the plus or minus 0.1. So y'all, 23 is good. 16.26 is good. 16.32 is good. 16.34 is good. 16.38 is good. But y'all, 0.42 and 0.46 are both above 16.4. So we had 5 out of 7. So to get the percentage, We had 5 that met expectations divided by 7 total. That gives you 71.71, but you need to turn that into percent by multiplying by 100. Sort of like we did when we was doing the interest rates and all that fun stuff. So, y'all, let's go see how far they want us to round this. So round to the nearest integer. That means no decimal places. So they want it to be, so since that's a 0.4, I would not round that up and I would keep that 71. So that would be 71% for the first one. And then we would check that answer. And then y'all were doing that for the second one. So remember, they got to be in between 16.2 and 16.4. So 0.18 is too low. So 21 works, 0.25 works, 0.35 works, 0.39 works, but y'all 0.42 and 0.46 are too large. So this one we had 4 good ones. So let's see what we get when we divide 4 by 7. So 4 divided by 7 equals a decimal, and then I'm going to multiply that by 100. So we get 57. I'm going to keep that a 7 because that's a 1 after it. So this one would be 57. So y'all, we would write that in, and you would check your answer. All right, y'all, so look at that. That took us almost 45 minutes to do our statistics problem, okay? So a lot of math involved on those. All right, y'all. So what I want to do now is give y'all an idea of what kind of stuff you can do for your statistics project. So I'm going to share the directions. Now, this won't be due for about 4 weeks or so. So I just want to get y'all started on finding out what kind of question you need to ask people and then sort of show you what we'll be doing. And we'll use class to help y'all out through this, okay? And y'all remember these projects are a big part of your grades. Um, so y'all right here are some acceptable type questions you can ask people. Like, how much is your monthly cell phone bill? How old were you when you had your first child? How many miles do you commute to school or work? How much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you spend exercising a week? How much money do you spend eating out each week? How many times a week do you eat fast food? How many sodas or cups of coffee do you drink per week or day? So you need to do at least 10 to 20 people and ask them some kind of question like that. Okay? So what we'll do from that, we're going to take y'all's data and we're going to create a frequency table. Okay? And remember, frequency table is a table we made up and we counted how many times people said those answers. Okay? And I'll show you how to make a pretty graph using Excel. I'll start getting y'all good at Excel next week, showing y'all how to do some of this on it. And all of y'all should have access to Microsoft Excel. since y'all are students at Pulaski Tech, okay? So we'll create
So,
a frequency table.
so when we ask the question, do we only pick one question to ask multiple people, or do we pick several questions?
No, no, no. You're just going to take data on one thing. So if you
Okay.
wanted, if you wanted to do the one like, how many Cokes do you drink a day? You would ask your 10 or 20 people that same question.
Okay.
And then we're going to make a little graph up and charts based on your data, okay?
Got you.
Uh-huh. And then we'll come in and we're going to do pretty much what we did today. The mean, median, we'll find the mode, the range. The five number summary was like I did with the box plot, and then that standard deviation. And y'all, we're going to work on these each day if y'all need it. Y'all got questions over anything, we need to get them answered off in these classes, okay? And if you look in, let me pull up my week 11 folder. I think I got that in. All right, y'all. So I'm going to share my screen so that y'all can sort of see what I was talking about. So this one asked about how many hours per week do you work for your job? So right here, they got all their answers. They made a frequency chart and they sort of made bins. What we're talking about bins is like breaking the data down into like intervals. And then your frequency would be how many times each happened. So it looks like this one asked about 25 students on this one. We'll make a little pie chart that shows the percentages of like from 0 to 8, 9 to 16, and so forth. All right, then we'll just come down and do the basic stuff like today. We'll find our mean, median, and mode, our five number survey summary. Um, then we'll sort of tell about it. Okay, so this is in week 11 if you want to sort of look at that for an idea. But y'all, I'll help y'all do the math on it, and I'll sort of help y'all do the charts using Microsoft Excel. And actually, I'll show you how next week I'm going to show you how to use Microsoft Excel to figure out your standard deviation and all that. So you don't have to do all that math work. We'll use Microsoft Excel. I'm just not showing you this week because I wanted y'all to sort of have fun doing this standard deviation, okay? Um, but next week I will definitely show y'all how to do all that on that Microsoft Excel. Alrighty, y'all. So, do y'all have any questions? Yeah, it does stress a lot of people out. And you just think about it. You go through there and you make one mistake on a number you're entering in the calculator or something. Oh my God, that would kill you at the end, you know it? So, um, gotta watch for them mistakes on that for sure. All right, I'm just making sure I got everybody checked in real quick. So y'all, that's the big thing this week was mainly doing our standard deviation. So let me see. All right, had a pretty good turnout tonight, it looks like. All right, y'all. So I'll send out the video later going over the question 9. That was like your question 9 on your homework. Um, and then, like I said, in week 11 folder in math and Blackboard, that'll sort of have the directions I was showing y'all for the stat project and a sample stat project. And I even think, let me look in there real quick. I even got a little folder using Excel for the stat project if you wanted to sort of look at that before I get into that next week. But I'll be going over all that with y'all for sure. Oh, I see that. Yep. Got like an I and an S and a T, I think, missing from that. That's all right. Math people don't spell good anyway. All right, y'all, I'm going to stop that record then.